Hello, I'm Tony Guida. This is my New York. There is a photograph you need to see. Two literary giants, Maya Angelou and Amiri Baraka, jitterbugging at Harlem's Schomburg Center. An image of pure joy that captures the artistry of photographer Chester Higgins Jr. It's Chester's favorite photo from a distinguished career at the New York Times, and it illuminates his goal of creating images that reveal the decency and dignity of people of African descent. Chester Higgins Jr., next. Chester Higgins, it is my honor to welcome you to this program. Good to see you.
Thank you, Tony. It's good to see you, too.
I want to tell the audience that Chester recently was given a Lifetime Achievement Award by the Silurians Press Club at a dinner here in the city. And at that dinner, a very powerful statement about Chester's work was made by Dean Baquet, the executive editor of the New York Times.
He brought people into our pages who would never have been there, people whose worlds would have been largely invisible to readers of the Times. In that way, he changed the institution and he changed journalism.
Chester, an extraordinary achievement that you've accomplished and recognized by so many. It's magnificent.
Thank you. Thank you.
But it wasn't photography wasn't your first calling. Your first calling came at the rough little age of 9 at home in a scary incident.
It wasn't a voluntary calling.
No, not many are.
Well, yes, I had this this apparition one night when I was 9 years old. Early in the middle of the morning, something made me wake up, and I saw this light on the wall across from me, and I'd never seen anything like this before. And I'm a kid. I don't know what this means. Everything about the life, you imagine children are always discovering. They don't know what the world is about, and we don't know if this is normal or abnormal or what have you. And I'm looking at this, I'm sitting up looking at this, and I feel this energy in the room, but there's nothing ominous and threatening about it. So it could be something that happens to people at night, who knows? And then gradually this circle of white light in the middle opens up, and there's this black man in cloth clothes, like, toga, standing there, and eyes in like a yoga meditative image of eyes closed and hands up, and then finally the eyes open, and then it starts moving towards me.
Ooh.
I feel a little uneasy, but maybe it's okay. But then I hear in my head, not in the air, that the message that it says, "I come for you." And at that point, I figured this really cannot be good. I really freaked out, and I started screaming, because I just felt that in my selfish hearts of hearts, I felt that I was really too young to die. I just got here.
Yeah.
So I'm a little upset now.
And was it your great-grandfather interpreted this?
My grandfather.
Your grandfather.
My grandfather and my grandmother, who was staying with us at the time, because his house had been burned down by the Klan, because he had been paying for poll taxes to get more blacks on the voting polls.
I should tell the audience, just to put this in context, this is in a little rural village in Alabama.
Southeast Alabama, where Georgia, Florida, and Alabama come together.
Where Chester grew up. Lives in Brooklyn now, and we're glad that happened.
Thank you. So when people came in, we had a light that hung from the ceiling, and someone pulled on the light, and this light went away with the man in it. Oh. And I was and my mother was down holding my hands, and I just was still screaming because I wasn't quite sure then. I was feeling elevated and seeing her recede from me. And I wasn't quite sure if this is what happens in death, is that those who are living, this is how you're separated from them. And my grandfather interpreted it as a call to the ministry. And I guess he was right, because he gave me a Bible the next day and I started reading it. And I just sort of took the scripture, which I had never done before, like fish to water for years. And then for years I ministered and preached until I went to college at Tuskegee.
Yeah. And it was there that you, I guess I could put it, you had as you say in your memoir, Echo of the Spirit, you became a different kind of evangelist eventually, and it sort of began in college when you discovered photography.
Right. Well, I didn't know it. All these things, I'm just sort of following, where my head, so to speak, or following the Spirit. But when I went to college, I separated, like a butterfly from a cocoon. I separated from being a minister. I didn't tell anybody I'd been a minister, because I wanted to live in my age group. What I mean is that if you're a minister, my experience is that people then treat you as an adult, as a spiritual person. And somehow a lot of the frivolity that goes along with in teenagehood did not appeal to me.
Right.
But when I went to college, and I wanted to make sure that was no longer a wall in my age group, so that people wouldn't treat me differently, I could experience a normalcy, so to speak. And then photography came. And the photography allowed me to become a witness to the people who I felt that in my heart of heart were people who I had an utmost respect for, that I essentially, if I had to build a neighborhood, or build a community, these would be the people who I would want to be in that neighborhood or community. And that's how I sort of edited out the people that I photographed. But it started because accidentally I went to this old man's house who was a photographer, and he had these pictures that were behind a curtain that he had made in the 30s, this photographer. And I asked him, because I was very struck with these pictures, because they reminded me, they looked so much like the rural farmers from my village.
The people you grew up with, the people you know.
People I knew, very dignified. And I realized that, photography was an expensive thing. Having a portrait made was an expensive thing to have happen. Now, I was used to pictures because my mother was a school teacher. Every year she had a different picture. But most people, that was not their reality. And when I saw these pictures, I asked this man to teach me photography so that I could go back home and photograph the people who I love, actually more than my parents, my great uncles, my great aunts. But I also wanted them to feel the sense of agency of their picture on the wall. At the time, the only pictures that farmers have on their walls would have been the Farmer's Almanac and a picture of Jesus Christ. I wanted them to have a picture themselves. And I spent a year studying how to become a photographer just to make pictures of my family members in this village. So that when giving them a picture, to me, the reward was seeing their faces when I put a framed photograph of them on their wall. So I started to be a photographer because of the love for the people of my hometown, and become a witness to their existence and the effect, and also it's a way of paying homage to them for the effect that they had on my life and the effect that they had on other people in my community.
I want to talk a little about Tuskegee and your growing awareness because of the civil rights demonstrations, of the political value of photographs, of pictures.
Yes. Well, I learned after I had mastered this skill of being a photographer. Tuskegee, we had a very active student body, and we will sometimes go over to Montgomery to picket this governor named George Wallace at the state capitol. And when we come back, one day it struck me, the pictures in the newspaper and the pictures on television did not show us as American citizens petitioning the government for rights. Instead, what came through in the imagery were people who the image makers saw us as potential thugs, arsonists, and rapists. Our message, what we're about, civic message, had no meaning. And that taught me a couple of things. It taught me, one, that a photograph never lies about the photographer. And it taught me also that what the photographers could not see, what's below their radar, I had the ability to see. So then I had a choice. I could rail against the racist practices that are just inherent by socialization, or I can make the pictures that other people cannot see, and then try to use my business experience to sell those to national editors so that there was another view to be seen. I could not push their view aside, but all I wanted was to bring a different view on stage.
And you did, as you went to an interview for a job at the New York Times, and told them essentially this message.
Right.
You know, the people in what Dean Baquet was referring to. You brought people to that. They hired you, of course, and you brought people to that paper who had never been in that paper before.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, as I told Abe Rosenthal, who hired me, I says, look, my feeling is that in the media, there are three things that are missing when it comes to my people. And that's the issues of decency, dignity, and virtuous character. And he looks at me, he said, well, I think you'll fit right in. That's what I want to do. Yeah. That's what I want to bring to it.
We should look at some of your photographs. And I have a long list here, but perhaps you just want to cite some of the things that were in the Times. I mean, you know, family strolling in Harlem, father swinging his son in a Brooklyn park. Let's talk about some of those photographs during your Times career.
Well, I felt very blessed to be able to work at the Times because my message of trying to show visual normancy about the lives of people other than the people who read the paper was my mission. That the Spirit had given me this opportunity to be to contribute professionally to journalism and to expand the understanding of what our neighbor's community looks like. And that everybody, we're all human and we all love our children. We all have relationships with our friends. We all have loss. We have joy. And to be able to see that is a normalcy that is given to us based upon our blood, not upon our skin, is something that I felt was my mission in my work at the Times. So yes, I was eager to do whatever the Times wanted me to do with their normal assignments, but I was also eager to interest the Times in other things that they would not have thought about that was under their radar. And then tried, trying to convince people on pictures is an impossible task. You can talk it, but you have to really go out and show it and come back with the pictures to get the editors to see what you're talking about. And then people say, that makes sense.
This might be a good time for you to tell our audience the wonderful advice you got from Gordon Parks.
Well, I went to see Gordon, because you have to remember, unlike now, when I was starting out in 67, 68, 70s, there were no photography schools. There were painting schools, but no photography schools. So you had to learn by mentoring. And I had the good fortune of running into having 4 good mentors in my life. First starting out at school at Tuskegee, then coming to New York and meeting Arthur Rothstein, who was head of photography at Look, and Cornell Copper, whose friend was Gordon Parks.
Yes.
So I went over to Gordon's house, and Gordon sees me. He says, okay, well, what do you want to do? And I tell him the same thing. I had these 3 issues, and after changing these 3 issues, he says, okay, if that's how you feel, he says, there are 36 frames on a roll of film. When you get an assignment from an editor, and they ask you to do something in Harlem, anywhere, of black people, and if you make 35 the way you're telling me, which you should make.
Showing the decency, the normality,
right.
the kind of people you know and understand.
Showing their worth. He says, if you make the 36 image a negative image, what they're used to seeing, that's the image they're going to choose. So if you don't want them to choose that image, don't make it.
Don't make it. Gordon Parks was an extraordinary writer,
right.
Photographer, film director, so much.
Musician.
So much. Yes, musician.
Yeah, he had all these skills, and it was just, it was humbling to visit him. He would he would, he would give you these appointments to come see him from time to time. And, his photographies, is why most people are attracted to him. He also did these books of his poetry for years.
Yes.
And he did films, and he composed music. And he was very proud of himself. He was a very healthy ego.
I have to tell you a quick, I'm going to make this quick anecdote about Gordon. I was once paired with him in a doubles tennis game by a friend of mine who had a weekly game and somebody couldn't show up, and he asked me if I'd come, so I went, and he said, here's your partner, it's Gordon Parks.
Was he a good player?
No, I was okay. I wasn't very good.
Was he?
Was he? He was pretty good.
Ah.
Yeah. Okay, this is in the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
Late in the 90s, I think it was, you might even know, when he put out that magnificent book, sort of a retrospective of his career.
Mm-hmm.
They had the book party up at the Museum of the City of New York.
Mm-hmm.
Now this is 25 years, or maybe at least 25 years. So I go up there, I buy the book, I stand on line, I want him to, and I come to the table, and he's sitting at a table and he's signing the book. I come to the table and Gordon Parks looks up and says to me, how's your forehand? I nearly collapsed. Anyway, let's get back to you. There were a couple of, you made pictures of, all kinds of newsworthy folks and interesting people in New York and icons. Two iconic New Yorkers, Brooke Astor, what a wonderful photograph this is, and Iris Apfel, the fashion giant. Talk about those two photos a little bit.
Well, Brooke was interesting because, she had a very close relationship with this dog.
Yes.
You got a dog that growls at you. She loved this dog, and this dog, loved her, obviously. So, and then she had these dresses that were really very fashionable. Very, she was a very classy woman, and so I started making pictures of her, and she in one part of her house, her apartment up on Park Avenue, and then I ended up at the end making the picture of her with her dog in her lap in her bedroom with these four-posted
and Iris
and
with
Iris
those glasses.
Now, Iris is really a hoot, She
looks like one.
and she wanted to be. She said, "Well, I want to look young and sexy." she must have been 90, 85, and 90 at the time. I says, okay, we can do that. So, and he set up my lights, and then we'll put you on this couch, and you can stretch out on the couch, and So we worked it out, and she was, as a fashion person, she knew what she was after, and we did it. And I think I shot her a couple of times after that, and she always insisted when the Times had to make a picture of her that I should be the one to come photograph. She loved that. She loved that sexy picture so much.
Yes, I can see why. I want to take you to a time, I think it was in the 90s, when an African burial ground was discovered down by City Hall, Lower Manhattan. And you actually petitioned
the GSA.
The city,
City and the GSA.
To conduct a religious ceremony
Ritual,
there.
yes.
And that picture of that ceremony that you made happen, but now you take a picture of it, is powerful and moving. Talk about that experience a little bit.
Thank you. First of all, I have to say I don't take pictures, I make pictures.
You make pictures.
And that's a perfect example.
Yes, I'm sorry, I'm not a photographer.
That's okay. But, because I travel since 71 every year to Africa.
Yeah.
And in West Africa, I spent so much time, and I studied West African religions. And when we started uncovering the burials in African burial ground, they came across two burials that were very significant. Most burials, the people's arms are down alongside them, but they came across two burials like this. And at first, they were confused about the significance of that. They thought maybe it was someone who was tied up with ropes and then, tortured to death. And I said, well, wow, this is incredible. What you have found shows that when this African person who came here and was enslaved, believed in the African religion of nature. Because if you ever go into a museum and you see Egyptian mummies or mummy cases, they're in this position. And that's the position of nullification of the positive and negative signs. Before you had the period when you would use a cross, you would salute the elders or the spiritual people that particular way. So over time, as they begin to remove all of these burials, I asked for permission to have a ceremony of people who believe here now in the diaspora, who believe in the ancient African religion of nature. And because we had Christians who would come by, we had Muslims who would come by and done services outside the perimeter of the work area. And I asked if I can bring these people inside the perimeter, and it just so happens that the permission did not come through until the last 2 or 3 burials were being moved out. And that's when I was able to bring this a priestess and this priest in to do a farewell ceremony before these bones were lifted out. And I thought that was just fitting to give homage to what these people actually believed in.
You mentioned Africa. You've been there so many times. In fact, I think this year you were in Egypt for the 22nd or 23rd time.
Yes.
What is it you're photographing Chester's latest book, Sacred Nile, in color, first time, has a lot of what you're doing but talk in general about what you've brought back from your years in. Well,
it started with my mother. One day, as I was a child, going through her World Book encyclopedias and seeing these Egyptian figures. But my mother also was very proud of herself and very proud of her people. And I found out, and somehow that gave me a very positive disposition about learning more about Africa and about family history. But it turns out that my great-great-grandfather was a child who was captured in Senegambia.
Really?
And brought here as the British had outlawed slavery on the high seas. So he was a young man who was enslaved in Charleston as a rice farmer when the Civil War troops marched south and liberated his plantation. And him, like many other black men at the time, joined up with the federal troops as stevedores, which meant that they handled the wagons and the mules to carry all the heavy stuff. Some of those over time learned how to shoot and became infantry people, in which my great-great-grandfather was. And when the war ended, he was mustered out in one of the 2 coastal counties in Alabama. We have Mobile and Baldwin. In Baldwin County, Fairhope, and that's where he started his family. Now, I've always had this attraction about Africa, and I've always gone since my first trip because I feel like I'm learning my cousins. Growing up in this country, we as people of color have to learn everybody's history except ours. And our history that we get is so corrupted and so distorted that we don't get a history that makes us feel good about ourselves. So as my minor was in sociology, I realized that primary research had to be done, and that had to be done, if it was going to be done at all, by my own interrogating my own motives and my own questions. And that's what began back and forth to Africa, meeting my cousins essentially, photographing, being a witness to what the many different cousins who look like me, what they do, looking for the things that connect us.
We have so little time, Chester, and I wish we had hours more. Maybe this is a good time to tell the audience your great uncle's advice to you when you were in. when
I flunked out of my first year at Tuskegee, because I thought I wanted to be an electrical engineer, but I didn't have the math for it. But they we will let you come back in, but you have to change your major. And I was back home talking about that, and I went to see my great uncle, who I grew up with, night fishing, night hunting. Fantastic.
He's a very important, influential figure in your life.
Very important figure. So I'm talking about this, and he was out in his corn garden, and he says to me, he said, well, Chester, whatever you do, you have to make a statement or a mark on life, or you could very well die undeclared.
Wow.
So he didn't help me. But he taught me that, wow,
That's-
you know, for a 19-year-old kid full of ego, it doesn't have to matter that you were here unless you make it matter.
Yeah.
So he gave me a focus that that since haunted me, I guess, the rest of my life.
Chester has described himself as an anthropologist with a camera, and he clearly is that and much more. And you need to look up him online, and you need to look up some of his books, his memoir, Echo of the Spirit, his books about Africa, the latest one, Sacred Nile, Elder Grace, photographs of elderly black people. There's a wonderful anecdote that goes with that I think you told to Fred Conrad, you know, how you were trying to find a woman with white, a woman with white hair, and you couldn't.
Yeah. Well, in the beginning of this project, I was trying to make a statement about the nobility of aging, and I was looking for people with white hair. And I had a hard problem finding them. I would go to churches and look at the congregation. So finally I was photographing one woman, and I was saying, you know, I'm having a problem finding these people because I know they're living, but they don't have white hair. And she says to me, she said, well, child, they're undercover. And I didn't understand that. I said, what do you mean? She said, they're under Clairol. I said, oh,
On the Clairol.
Clairol cover. I said, oh, okay.
Chester Higgins, what a delight, an anthropologist with a camera, and it is my great joy to have you with us here today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And thank you for watching. We'll see you next week.